Hi, I'm Dave Radparvar, and I'm about to have a productive conversation with Mike Vardy.
Welcome to A Productive Conversation. I'm Mike Vardy, and today I'm sitting down with Dave Radparvar. He is an entrepreneur, designer, and father who is deeply committed to fostering human flourishing, and he's currently residing in Amsterdam with his wife and son. He's also co-founded Reflection.app. I'm a big fan of Reflection. It's a digital guided journaling platform that supports personal wellness and growth. But prior to this, he was one of the co-founders of Holstee, whose mission it was and is to inspire mindful living. And that platform has inspired millions and impacted millions through its products and community. Now, throughout our conversation, Dave shares the evolution of his work from the early days of Holstee to the inception and growth of Reflection. We dive deep into the importance of journaling as a practice for gaining perspective, handling challenges, and cultivating gratitude. Dave also opens up about his own personal journaling journey, discussing how it's helped him navigate both difficult times and joyful moments. And we also explore the impact of digital tools on journaling practices, including how AI is shaping the future of self-reflection while still emphasizing the importance of honesty and depth in writing. So whether you're an avid journaler or new to the practice, this conversation, this episode, well, it provides thoughtful insights on how to integrate journaling into your daily life to live more intentionally. So without further ado, here's my conversation with Dave Radparvar. Enjoy. Dave, thanks so much for taking the time to join me today. We are, for those of you that are members of my Time Crafting Trust premium community, live streaming this as we're recording it. So they're getting it like at least 5-6 weeks in advance, as opposed to when we actually release this conversation. It's also available live on my YouTube. Well, it's on my YouTube channel, but right now we're doing it live on my YouTube channel. If you go back and look at my YouTube channel, you'll be able to find this conversation, including some of the behind the scenes stuff that you don't really get to see before we actually polish this thing up and put it out into the world. But Dave, I really appreciate you joining me because you and I have a lot of kind of fondness around the idea, the concept, the practice of meditation. And before we kind of dive into the conversation, for those that are watching it on video, I kind of talked about my coffee mug because I look at these conversations as if you're sitting down having a cup of coffee, glass of wine, a beer, whatever. And this coffee mug does indeed have 3 handles on it. And it's from a company called Meow Wolf. And they do a series of these art installations across parts of the US. They have the first one was in Santa Fe. Then they built one in, I want to say the next one was in Denver. They also have one in Las Vegas, which is called Omega Mart, which if you've been to Vegas, you might have heard of Omega Mart. They have one now, I believe, in Fruitvale, Texas. They're opening another one up in Houston, and I think I'm missing one. But the bottom line is that this is from the Society of Peripheral Studies, which explains why there's 3 different handles on it, because no matter what angle you approach it from, you're going to be able to grab onto your cup. And this mug teaches me perspective. Now that's why I'm drinking out of it for this conversation, Dave, because I believe that journaling allows you to kind of either regain or foster or, appreciate things from the perspective of not just the moment when you're journaling it, but when you go back and read it and review your journals as well. So to me, journaling is an undervalued and underappreciated practice that will help you, kind of cultivate productiveness in your life. Why was it so important for you why is it important for you to journal? And why was it important for you to kind of lean into that and bring products like Reflection into the world?
Yeah. So for me, journaling has taken many different shapes over the course of my life. And at times, I would be traveling and I'd keep a travel journal. At times I'd, keep a gratitude journal. Sometimes I would do morning pages. And it's different practices, always right around writing and reflecting that have really grounded me in the present and given me perspective, just like you said. And one of the great things about perspective is it helps you realize what's actually important. It helps you navigate really big feelings. It helps you navigate, yeah, really hard moments. And then on the flip side, it helps you appreciate what you have. It helps me really get present in the moment, grateful for the things that I already have, for how far I've come, and really give me a sense of fulfillment. So for me, journaling's really supported me on both ends of that spectrum of like getting me through really hard times, but also helping me foster gratitude and appreciation for really good times. So in that way, it's kind of always been there to kind of balance me out. And it's really just been a window for me into my past and also into my future, helping me align my compass a bit to where I'm going. So for all those reasons, journaling is very kind of personal to me and something I'm very passionate about. And for all those reasons, I'm just so excited that I get to spend my days building a tool around it and supporting other people with the practice. So it means a
Well,
lot to me.
well, and the fact of the matter is that journaling is clearly something that's becoming more popular, in the Western world. It's becoming more popular, not unlike meditation. And you can tell this from a variety of standpoints. If you're looking at this from one perspective, which is, it's a practice that's older than the to-do list, right? Because it's stories, right?
Mm.
Like it's your own personal. I mean, the heralded Stoic manual for a lot of people, meditations, is a journal. Like that's what it was. It's not
Yeah.
like, and I mentioned this in a workshop not too long ago. It's not like Marcus Aurelius had a deal with HarperCollins to publish it was his own journal that he learned from, but also in theory, or maybe it happened to go this way, where others have been able to learn from it. So why do you think that you've got companies not unlike, like Day One is another app that's very popular when it comes to journaling. Obviously, there's the 5 minute journal, which is both a physical journal as well as an app. I mean, even there are physical journals through Reflection. Like I've got the Reflect and Reset journal. There's several different ways to go about doing it. And Apple, in one of its most recent iterations, said, we should add journaling to the mix. And they've actually removed some of the friction. So why do you think journaling is kind of seeing a bit of a renaissance and a heightened sense of popularity in recent years?
Yeah, I think there's been such a growing awareness over how we feel and generally around holistic wellness and the word mental fitness. I think a shared friend of ours, Mark Champagne, uses that word a lot. And
Yep.
I really love that word because people focus so much on physical fitness and mental fitness is also such like an important component of us being able to, yeah, live our best lives really. And I think people are now realizing that if you don't get the things that are in your head somehow out, whether it's verbally, whether it's written, they kind of stay in there, and it's very hard to navigate. And people are seeking clarity. People are seeking focus. People are seeking a sense of purpose, and so much of that is an inner journey. And journaling is one of many tools, but a very powerful and very accessible one for people to use. And so I think people are just starting to realize, like, oh, yeah, I can journal. And actually, I need very little. And you could use an app, you could use a pen and paper, you could just use a Google Doc. And that's what's so beautiful about it. And I think some people say, I don't journal, but then they're like posting a lot of like really long posts on social media about how they're feeling. It's like, yeah, that's
Yeah, yeah. You're journaling for the world. Well, like,
exactly. Yeah, and I think the downside of that is there's often a filter around that, and the benefit of journaling privately is you can remove that filter. And the most important thing I think when someone journals and reflects is that they're just honest. Just be really, really honest with how you're feeling in this moment, and that can be scary. Honestly, the reason why I journal digitally is because I was first of all I can't read my own handwriting, which was just step one, but step two is like weeks later, I would just never know what I wrote. But the second part is I would always be worried that I would lose the journal. And I would just be so nervous that I might hurt someone's feelings or someone might find it or something like that. And or something would be out of context, all those things. But so for me, having like a private, secure digital journal is just so important. But um, I've always been kind of typing and journaling, so that feels really special for me.
in a sense, that kind of, so that's a concern that's come up quite a bit when I talk about journaling, because reflective practice is an element of time crafting. When I talk about time crafting, it's
Mm.
like, and it can take, that's the great thing about so many options out there, is that there are a bunch of frameworks, philosophies, methods that you can kind of take elements from and build your own kind of approach to this. And when I talk about journaling and when you talk about, like you mentioned the handwriting piece, I can read my handwriting, it's fine. But the thing is, I spend a lot of time writing during the day, right? So for me, and you know this because I've brought it up a couple times. I'm like, I know because I'm a beta tester, I'm on test flight for Reflection. There's been moments where I'm like, guys, dictation isn't working. Guys, dictation isn't working properly. And I mean, it's fine now. Let me be clear. But that when you're going through beta updates,
Yep.
it's literally I mean, I'm the one that probably is the one that is. But guys, by the way, this broke a bit of dictation.
You're the reason that feature exists. That's for sure.
Because I do text. Because for me, that allows that filtration to kind of fade away a bit. Truth be told, and I've said this in workshops and even in the courses that I've done inside my community, the journaling course being one of them, is I don't expect anyone to ever read this thing ever. And if they do, I will be gone. Like when they read it, I'll be gone. And here's the thing. I think that when you do this sustainably, because it is a sustainable practice that you can do. It's not something you win. It's not something like it's a practice, like it's like exercise or anything like that. But what's interesting is that even in those moments where you may have said something that might hurt someone's feelings, by and large, it's part of the larger story. So if it's somebody that you truly care about, like I'll be perfectly frank, in my journal, there are moments where I am bitching about my wife and my kids. I mean, and that's human, right? But for the most part, that's like 20% of at most. Most of the 80% is like, look at my son, he's rehearsing for this thing, and like just innocuous, maybe even considered to be mundane at that point in time. But there's the magic in those moments that's life. Like those things that you don't think about. Like yesterday's journal entry. I was reading the Life Impossible by Matt Haig, who I really love his writing. And I took a photo of that, snapped that and put it inside and I started talking about it. And I mean, some of the stuff that's in that entry from yesterday seems rather, banal. But when you read it in the larger frame, which we got a question coming up here from Janet. And again, this is not going to show up great on video, but it's just the nature of the way the font is presenting itself, unfortunately, for those that are watching this live or watching the video of it. Because I journal daily and it's part of my evening routine, when I go and read my journal, that is like, it flashes back to those moments of not necessarily monumental stuff, but also just those little pieces that make up daily life. And so Janet, who's a member of the Time Crafting Trust Community Premium member, her question is, and this is a great question because it comes up a lot, journaling itself is only part of it. It's, like writing in it. But how often do you reread your journals? So what for you, like for me, I'll answer it, but you go ahead and answer. I'd love to hear how you do it first.
Yeah, I guess I revisit my journal in a couple different ways. So I do a monthly review, and that was something that was really important to us, kind of building in a review process into the app, because I feel like you said, there's one thing to write it down, but there's another thing to revisit it. So I typically do a monthly review, and that kind of takes me through my highlights of my month, the lowlights of my month, what I learned, what I'm grateful for. And then I always do a pretty big annual review. My wife and I both do it usually together. We'll kind of take a day and kind of go through and just kind of take stock of the year, how it went in ways that we planned and how it went in ways that we definitely didn't plan. And that kind of is the foundation for us looking ahead to the year ahead. But so that's kind of like a more structured review process. But I will say I search my journal a lot for kind of anything. Like, I hurt my back a couple weeks ago, and it was like I write down when I'm in physical pain, like because I'll forget, like, oh, was it my lower back or upper back, and did I go to physical therapy, and what helped and what didn't help? And so I was like, oh, when is the last time I hurt my back? And that's actually a new feature. Actually, we just launched it. But you can ask your journal now any question. You don't need to search for the word back. Like up until about a year ago, like you had to just type in the exact search word. But now I can just like ask you a question. when is the last time I hurt my back, or when's the last time I went to the physical therapist? And then I can get some more context around like what was the ailment and what happened. Because for me, like I might have repeated shoulder pain or repeated pain, and so it's like a good way for me to kind of take stock. And my memory is not great. That's another reason why I journal so much. It's like just to really help me remember the things that happen.
Hmm. Hmm.
So I ask a lot of questions. I look back at what books I read. If someone asks me like, "Oh, what book or what books do you recommend right now?" I can easily just kind of go back. I always write like a quick review about books that I read. When you mentioned Matt Haig, I read Midnight Library
Oh, I
last year. I loved that
loved it.
book.
Loved it.
Um, yeah, so I just wrote down Life Impossible when you mentioned it because I definitely want to add that to my list. I haven't read that one yet.
It just came out, like literally as we're recording.
Okay.
It came out like I think a couple of weeks ago, and I had it on
Oh,
hold from the
amazing.
library. Yeah, and again, it's if you like the Midnight Library, I think you'll. I mean, his writing is, especially when he comes to when his fiction writing, there's some common threads throughout. And actually,
Mm,
this is something interesting. Janet brings it up again in the chat. The idea of searching, like apps help with that, right? And of course,
yeah.
this is where the journaling app for Apple, which I'll use as an example here, um, can both help and hurt. And I'll explain why, and then I'll go into when. I mean, I review my entries based on some of the prompts that come through Reflection, because Reflection does offer the monthly review and the annual and so on and so forth. But I also have a recurring task that says, hey, read your journal every 2 weeks and so on. It's just
Mm,
because, again, like you pointed out, patterns and the direction you're going
yeah.
in. And journaling allows you to course correct fairly quickly, as opposed to, like, say, this weekly review, because a journal essentially can be
Yeah.
a daily review in a lot of
Yeah.
ways. But the thing about the Apple Journal app, which is both, again, a blessing and a curse, is it brings stuff in that you did throughout your day or that were indicative of that day from your device. So, what was the weather like? Here's the songs you listened to. Here's the photos you took. But you can't stop there. That's artificial intelligence, or Apple intelligence, maybe in this case, kind of giving you a leg up, a springboard of sorts, prompt for lack of a better term. But the story is not something that AI can craft. So you, like, to your point, searching for books you read, pain points, pattern recognition, things of that nature. That's really super helpful. And we see that throughout a bunch of different tools too. We see that through task managers and note-taking apps and PKM and all that stuff. But how important do you believe it is to, like, the role of AI inside of this? Let's go there. The role of AI and technology inside of it, because you've built an app. Um, how do you see that helping journaling the practice? I think you've alluded to it a little bit, but also
Yep.
potentially causing some problems with the practice at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good question. Um, I can say as someone who's been journaling for so long, I have like so many entries, and it's too much to kind of go back and read them all. But I've been so excited for this moment that we're kind of on the precipice of like being able to search the entire context of your entire life's journal and ask some really powerful questions like, what are my personal core values, or what are some of my unconscious biases, or what are some opportunities for growth, or what are my self-limiting beliefs? Like asking really big, tough questions from the entire corpus of your journal. That gets me really excited. Um, the concerns are like, is this in any way replacing people doing, I'd say, like the hard work of reflecting, of sitting down and writing? There's a lot of, you know, there's some journals out there that are like really like, oh, like they kind of are feeding you the answers. They're feeding you a question kind of with the answer, and the idea is that you just respond with one word or one click. And of course, like that is good for engagement. It makes it really easy to get started, and just like one word, one tap. But for me, like I've never been drawn to that kind of practice, and I've never wanted that to be the core practice within the app, because I know that when you start writing, when you start going deeper, things from under the surface start bubbling up. And morning pages is 750 words. When I first started doing morning pages, I was like, what am I going to write for 750 words? And I even just started. I remember so clearly. I have to write 750 words. I'm not sure what to write right now. Just kind of like, and I was like, I'm just gonna go with it and see
Yep.
what happens. And that can be really fun. Sometimes I'll just write like, oh, I just heard a bird outside. My mind started daydreaming about a conversation I had yesterday. I wonder why that conversation came up. Like my inner voice, I just start writing it. I just start typing it as if it's being dictated to me. And the things that come out of that sort of writing, that sort of expressive writing, is very interesting. I feel like it opens up a whole new layer. And that just sometimes it just takes getting beneath the surface. And sometimes it takes like that mundane, but just getting in the practice and basically like lubricating your brain a bit and your fingers to start typing a bit, just kind of getting the wheels in motion. And I feel like that doesn't happen if you're kind of being served these answers through technology to kind of like get your journal entry done for the day. That's really not the point.
No, no. And you know what, it kind of reminds me of? It's like when you go bowling and you put the guardrails up against the gutters when you first start, so you can just get good at like the actual act of bowling. But if you leave the guardrails up all the time, you're not getting the real, like you're missing something. You're not going to see, oh shoot, you know, there's less, not pressure's not the right word, but the idea of like, I think a lot of these are guardrails. They reduce friction with the process initially. I think that they can create friction later. Like the 750 words of morning pages is, I think there to kind of go, here's your target, because people are really good with quantity, really good in terms of because it's numerical, it's absolute, right? Like 750 is 750. It's like Courtney Carver's Project 333, right? When it comes to her clothing challenge, right? I've been doing that for years. And initially I followed the rules as closely as possible. I just literally yesterday did it because it's a season change. And, you know, I redo my wardrobe at that time. Don't have to buy new clothes. I've saved a lot of money that way. And I've been very clearly been able to kind of, and I'll link to that episode in the show notes for those that want to take on that kind of challenge. But now I'm like, I play a bit more fast and loose with those rules. Right. And I think that ideally with anything, with any framework, the framework is there to support, and it's like scaffolding, as opposed to like the rigidity is where we can fall down. Because if you don't write 750 words, then your brain goes, I didn't do it right. I failed. And I think, do you think that the idea of, again, the 5-minute journal is a good example too. I think a lot of people think that they are going to do it wrong. Do you know what I mean? Like they're going to do journaling wrong. Yeah. Like there's the right way to journal and the wrong, and then everything other way is wrong. And how do you help someone who is going through that? And then I've got Gloria Jean in the chat who's got a question as well, which we'll bring up. But how do you help people who are so stuck? Myopic could be a word there about it, because there's so many things in our lives that are like, okay, you know, inbox 0 means 0, right? You know, checking off these boxes means checking off these boxes, but the qualitative elements get lost in the shuffle. How do you help someone who's like, I'm afraid I'm going to do it wrong, or I'm afraid I'm not going to do it right?
Yeah. It's, you know, you might share a similar response to me, but there's really no wrong way to journal. I would say find a practice that feels right. Find a habit that feels right, whether it's morning or evening. If it's gratitude, I have like a really simple practice I do in the evenings, which is like 3 questions I do in the evening. And it's kind of, what am I proud of? What am I grateful for? And just generally, how is I feeling physically and mentally? Just kind of like 3 questions, kind of package up the day a little bit. You know, on the flip side, you could do morning pages, kind of just like write whatever comes to mind. There's just like so many different practices. And for people who are really scared, I will say that was a big part of what we had in mind when we built the app. The app is full of guided journaling practices. And the idea is that there's a practice for everybody, whether you're going through a personal transition, whether you're going through a difficult life moment with your kids or with your partner, with work, really every different topic. There's different categories, and you can really find a guide that helps you there. And those guides are created by different coaches and therapists, and that's really helpful. And the other thing that really helps, and I wanted to mention this also in the context of AI, something I actually used like right before this call when I was journaling, is we have something built right into the entry editor as you're typing. Is you can just type a couple words about how you're feeling. And I'll just share an honest example. Right before this call, I wrote, I'm about to get on a call with Mike Vardy. And to be honest, I'm feeling a little bit nervous. I'm also feeling excited about doing a live stream and a podcast. And we have a button, it's called Depth, and you click it, and it just gives you a couple follow-up questions to go deeper. And I got a couple of questions, and the questions were, if this podcast goes perfectly, what does it look like? 1 year from now, if this podcast goes great, or if it doesn't go great, how would you feel about it? Remember, we were talking about like perspective earlier. It's like you're getting that even though perspective is usually something that comes with time, you can also use it in that present moment. If someone asks you, how will you feel about this 1 year from now or 10 years from now? That can already start putting things in perspective. Anyway, so I had this back and forth. I must have hit the depth button about 3 times. I just kept writing, answering, and writing and answering. And then at the end, I was like, oh, I got 2 minutes left. And then you can also just ask any question from depth. So I said, um, I got 2 minutes left before I hop on the call. Can you just inspire and motivate me before I hop on? And then I got a great response, and it just said, um, have like the most important thing to remember is just have so much fun on this call. You're going to do great. Enjoy it. And like what was great is because like one of the things I always try and remember when I get on the call with anybody is just to kind of have fun, just kind of remembering that we're humans, really trying to enjoy each other's presence and learn from each other. So I was like, that reminder came at a perfect time, but it's also something that resonated deeply with me. But anyway, all that to say is there are little ways to kind of nudge you along when you're just not sure what to write. Even if you just write one thing, that's a start and get you to the next step.
Yep. And I can tell you that I've used AI for that very thing. And this is where I think in journaling, you can get away with some of the confirmation biases that AI offers. I think that's one of the places where it can serve you a bit better because ideally, if you're being honest, this is the key. You go back to your honest, you being authentic and honest. It will reflect back to you, literally reflect back to you what could be helpful in those moments. I've done that with my journaling as well. I mean, I remember when Depth used to be like a separate app. Remember when it was its own thing, like separate
Yeah.
from it? And
Yeah.
I used it for that. And I actually used it a couple of times in conjunction with, and this is where, okay, so I'll give you an example of how you can apply like the time crafting framework with journaling. And I do this in the journaling course where it's like, the questions would be at the end of the day, did I live up to my daily theme? So if my daily theme today is administrative, which it is, as we're recording this, I would ask it like, did I live up to my administrative day? Yes or no? And then if not, why? And then I would use the journal to go like, how many times has this happened where I haven't lived up to my daily theme? And it could search through and go, well, you've answered this question and like 65% of the time you have, and 35% of the time you haven't. So in my mind, I'm like, okay, well, for the most part, it's still working as a daily theme then. But if I was to like, and this is years ago, and this is before AI, I'd be like, Friday was my deep work day. And be like, did I live up to my daily theme today? No. Well, why not? Well, I'm tired. Friday's a tough day. And I'm like, but it used to be fine. And then I recognized through patterns that it was fine when my son was not going to school. And I had Wednesdays where he was home. Like, so the season of life had changed and Friday was no longer a good day for that. So I had to recalibrate. Right. And so to me, I think that because essentially journal is your story for yourself and it's for you, that's okay. Like if you need that boost or that honest, feedback, you're going to get it. And it's based on all the story that you've shared up to that point. If you've told yourself a false narrative, then it's going to give you false information. So the more honest you are, which again, to your point is, you might want to protect your journal, so on and so forth, which you should, I think. I mean, I think whether it's handwritten or digital, and Reflection does a really good job of that. Others do as well. Like I'm not going to, but Evernote wouldn't put a journal entry in Evernote. Notion, like some of those ones that are wider and more public, I'd probably steer clear of. All right, let's get to some of these questions. So Gloria Jean, and again, I'm sorry for those that are watching this on YouTube. It's harder to read, but I'll recite the question. So Gloria Jean has incorporated a 4-color pen to highlight different entries. So red is for things that did not happen. Is it possible to color inside of a digital product in your Reflection specifically? I'm going to let you kind of share what you think on that. There are some workarounds I think that can take the place of color inside of Reflection, but it is an interesting thing to think about for the simple fact that color is a quick you can quickly recognize, for me, orange pen means personal, green pen means work related. So I can look at that quickly and go, oh, that's what this is. It's a filtration device. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on what Gloria Jean, who's a premium member, and thanks Gloria Jean for asking the question, what your thoughts are on the use of color inside of a digital product.
Yeah. Great question. It's not something that exists currently in our app. I know it exists in some other apps out there, and it is something that's actually currently on our roadmap and something we're actually in the process of exploring. So I'm glad you brought it up. It's kind of small or like specific use cases like that, and hearing how different people currently journal that are super helpful for us. So yeah, thanks for sharing that. I'd say you were talking about workarounds, Mike. So I think adding tags is one way we could do workarounds in the app currently. Maybe you're thinking that.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Like there are several implementations inside of Reflection as exists right now, as of this recording, that could take the place of that. But you'd have to, again, there is that, it's not disconnect, but there is a slight deviation. So Gloria Jean, in your case, if you're using red for things you didn't do, you would probably put like, you could use the tag, you could use several tags, like I didn't accomplish, like things, you could figure out how to use that. And again, it's very nuanced and very personal. One thing that you could do, and I'm sure this is probably that as someone who has worked with apps before, so a little bit of I'll go, inside baseball here with Dave for a second, is tags could be colored. Like it's a lot simpler to color a tag than to color text in an entry. So if you were to look at, and we see this all the time inside of even just general OSs like the Mac OS, or inside of apps like ClickUp and Trello, like using color with predefined features like tags or labels make it far easier, because then you can see, the red label was used like 7 times this week. That means 7 times this week I didn't do something. Let me look deeper into, then to what you said earlier, Dave, I've noticed there's 7 red tags, which means to me that what didn't I do this week? And then you ask the question of the journal. It goes, well, this week you said you didn't do this, 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 and this. And then why didn't I do these things? So you can get deeper with it. And that to me, as Dave's probably like, I can see you, but you're like, that's actually probably the easiest way for us to implement. It wouldn't take much to do.
No, that is a great idea.
But color is super. I mean, we see it with calendars too, right? Like we use that with time theming and all that stuff. So, Gloria Jean, thanks for that.
I love
and I think that tagging at this point is probably the simplest way to do it. In most tags exist in most apps too. So, and I'm a big believer in trying to correlate your tags across multiple elements in your productivity systems. So if you're using red for, like trying to create some commonality so that the bridge for your attention doesn't have to go too far. Dave, another question from somebody that's a member of my community, Timothy. Timothy, thanks for. So if you find your journal entries are often very long, does that reflect that you have too much on your mind? That's an interesting. Go ahead, Dave, because I've got some thoughts on that as well.
I think it's awesome that you're journaling, and if your journal entries are long, I think that's fantastic. If they're short, I think that's fantastic. I think a good way to approach it is kind of, this like a judgment-free zone. It's like you're writing, and that's kind of the most important thing. You're reflecting, that's the most important thing. And I don't think there's anything good or bad about it. That would be my feeling.
Well, and I think further to your point earlier about the searchability factor is the more information you give it, the better your feedback is going to be, right?
For sure.
So, and this is why I dictate. This is why I'm bullish on it. This is why I bother you guys. This is why that feature is like, because I can talk far faster than I can write. This should be no surprise to anybody that's listening to this podcast. I filter less when I speak in that medium more than anything else. And then it gives, and again, the other thing about dictation too, and even, I'm not concerned about grammar. I'm not concerned about spelling things correct. I will go back, and if I see an obvious glaring spelling error or something that I couldn't quite make sense of, I will fix it when I review my journal entries. That's another reason why I review them rather regularly, is I don't want to lose sight of it. Because to your point, my memory is quite good, but the memory plays tricks on you, right? What we remember in a moment versus what actually happened can change. That's a tale as old as time. So to me, I'm with you. the longer your entries are, it doesn't, I mean, we all have lots of stuff on our minds. Everybody does.
Mhm.
It's,
Mhm.
this is a nice outlet for it though. So
Yeah.
what you can do with that information, Timothy, is you can say, okay, well, wow, there's a lot there. And then the other clue is, and I actually used this in a presentation I did recently, is I showcased the importance of it, of journaling. And one of my journal entries was, shit, still have writer's block. And that was the entire entry.
Mm.
That tells a story.
Yeah.
It tells
Yeah.
a story in that moment, but it also it would make the reader go, still, what led to this? You'd go back and look,
Yeah.
or you'd be like, well,
Yeah.
when will Mike not have writer's block again?
Yeah.
And all I did by that journal entry, the practice of that journal entry wasn't to was twofold. Number one, I was frustrated, but number two, I
Yeah.
knew that by writing a journal entry, at least I did that. Like that was like I
Yeah.
kept that story going. I kept that streak alive. And then when I see an entry that short compared to my longer ones, I'm like, whoa, okay, something's going on if I didn't
Mm.
say a lot versus if I did.
Mm.
Right? Does that make sense?
Mm. Yeah. And that actually brings something up for me as well. Before we had a Reflection.app, there was a period where I was going through like some challenging stuff and some challenging personal stuff. And I sent an email to myself and it just said, the subject line was happy question mark. And the body of the text was, right now, you're not super happy. If 6 months from now you're feeling the same way, do something to change it. And then I just sent that email to myself 6 months in the future. I forget what tool I was using at the time, some kind of future email sending tool. And I got that email back 6 months later. I totally forgot that I even sent the email to myself.
Mm.
And and I got it, and I was like, oh man, I must have been like really not happy if I like took the time to send myself this email. And I got it, and then I just kind of sat and reflected with it. I was like, okay, am I happy? And then I wrote a response to my past self, and then I wrote some new questions to my future self. And I wrote, these are specific things I'm thinking about right now, specific things I'm dealing with right now. The other stuff that I was stressed about, I'm actually not stressed about. Here are the new things I'm stressed about. And then I sent it again 6 months later. And I still actually have it. I no longer use that email. And now I just do it in my journal. But every 6 months, I get a reminder. It says, are you happy? And the idea is if you're not happy, do something to change it. And that practice, it sounds so simple. It sounds like so crazy simple, but wow, it changed my life. Honestly, it made me realize, first of all, the things that are typically stressing me at any given moment, 6 months from now are rarely even on the radar. That was a big surprise. The things that like I thought are huge and are weighing me down, like rarely was that the thing that was stressing me out 6 months from now. There was something new stressing me. There
Sure.
was something new in my mind, but rarely was it connected to what happened 6 months ago. And the other thing was, yeah, a sense of like accomplishment and like, wow, I'm like, that didn't happen, but this happened, and like celebrating that and realizing that like I do have agency over my own life and the direction it goes. And I think journaling is so powerful for that. A reminder of like, I can write something now, I can set an intention now, I can think through something now, and I can really direct the course of my life. And like living with that level of intentionality, I think is so powerful. And putting it in writing is like a way of really crystallizing it. So when you wrote that in your journal, like shit, still have writer's block, it made me think like, shit, are you still happy right now? Like that journal entry that I sent myself, I was like, yeah, just somehow that conversation with yourself can be so powerful. And then the perspective that that offers. And then, you might come back to that journal entry 6 months later, like shit, still have writer's block. And then see that 2 days later, you wrote an amazing blog post or, and it's like, oh yeah, writer's block comes and goes. And like, that's just the waves of life. And I think over time, when you see enough of those, then you can really just take a step back from everything and be like, oh yeah, I know how this goes. I know there's ups. I know there's downs. And then you're not as bothered by them.
Um, Dave, are you able to stick around for about 5 more minutes? Is that cool?
Oh, yeah, of course.
Okay,
Yeah,
cool. I know. I mean, we're gonna probably use again inside baseball. That will probably be the last thing that we put in the actual episode. What you just said before we wrap up. But I've got a couple more people that are asking questions. So Janet's got another one, and I think this is another technological one, which I think is important. And again, is there a way to incorporate handwritten entries with OCR so that searching could take place? Now, I could I would say that based on the way everything is going with the devices that we're using these days, that's going to become increasingly more available, not just to the apps, like to the devices themselves and the native apps that live on those devices. Apple's journaling app is a good example of that. And I know Android's done this for a long time. So for those that are listening and watching, and every time Apple introduces something, I always hear, and everyone says it, oh, Android's had this for 3 years or 2 years or whatever. Sure. But I think that the OCR component, I think, is going to start to take care of itself a bit more, especially with AI. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on that as well.
Yeah. It's something that's definitely on our roadmap, something that we're excited about as well, but not something yet possible in the app. But, I also, I definitely didn't want this whole podcast to be me promoting the app. So I think I will say that there's a lot of other apps that offer OCR that do handwriting recognition. So there could be some good options. I'm not familiar with them. I don't have a Apple Pencil, but I'm sure there are some good ones out there.
Well, the other thing you could do, and this is just a real sidebar, Janet, is you could write your journal entry, take a photo of it if you've got an Android or an iPhone device, and then it can recognize the text in it. It's like in the device, copy and paste it into an actual digital journal as well. So you could copy and paste it into like an app like Reflection or an app like, because I mean, I know I can take, if you wanted to take a photo right now, if Dave shifted a little bit more to the other way, you could take a photo, a screenshot of the manifesto that he's got by the Holstee manifesto, and it would likely be able to read a good chunk of it. And then you could copy and paste that into, like, if you wanted to have that as a mantra or whatever, right? So there is, and Rocketbook as well. Exactly, the Rocketbook, Janet. You brought that up in the chat as well. So the great thing about where we're headed with this, and this is also with meditation apps as well, is becoming more accessible, and the friction between the idea and the concept and the intention of doing it and actually being able to give it the attention with less friction and more focus is becoming more and more readily available, right? Where you can do that stuff without it being as much of a problem, instead of saying, well, I don't feel like writing a journal entry at the end of your day. But the value, like you talked about, like reminder, I love it when, and I've done this in workshops before too, where I'll say, and I wonder if you do this as well, Dave, where if someone's saying like, what did you like, I can shoot out a random date and go back to either one of the apps I've used and go, here's what I did on that day. And what's great about that is I can trust it. I can trust it more than remembering back. Like I can trust the trip to the Philippines that I journaled about rather than my memory of the trip to the Philippines, because it's going to be a little bit more, it won't be as precise. It'll be colored by my experience from that day to today. Like, but to be able to go back and go, like you said, the feeling of shit, I have writer's block. I'm like, oh yeah, that's not the first time I've had it. And look, I've written a book and all that stuff. So clearly I was able to get past it. Right. So I think that those moments, especially as your kids get older, if you've got kids, there's like, I've seen entries, and we get, by the way, you mentioned social media as well. People love the memories feature on Facebook. Here's what you did 5 years ago. Here's what you did 3 years ago. The thing about that is, like you said, it's couched with, kind of the filter that you apply, right? Whereas with the journal, you should be getting the genuine article, right?
Yeah. The other thing I'll mention is like something I'm just generally really excited about is the ability to like kind of consolidate and bring all the entries into one place. Like our upcoming sprint is the ability to import any journal entry from any platform, anything you put in, and eventually, like just like you said, Mike, about like taking a photo of something you've written and adding that to your journal. Just like for me, I think the next big frontier for us is like, regardless of how you are gathering this information, then being able to engage with it in a meaningful way is super exciting. So that's like something I'm personally really excited about, like whether it's voice, whether it's pencil, whether it's like another app, whether it's, for me, I have like a Tumblr that I had like 10 years ago, and it's like, I exported it and then no longer, it's like, I want to get that into my journal, or I have like Word documents that I used before there are any journaling apps out there. It's like, I want all of that in one place. And so like this like great consolidation is something I'm personally very excited about and excited to be able to offer soon.
One of my favorite, speaking of Tumblr, before we wrap up, I haven't shared this much with anybody. I don't even know if it's still open. I remember when Tumblr used to have, like, people used to do Tumblrs of what they were eating, like Instagram, right? Like, here's a plate of food or whatever. I actually did a parody
Yeah.
version of that where it's like, here's what I ate. And it was just an empty plate with like the stains of whatever the plate was on. Every entry was like a fork and a knife or whatever it was. And you couldn't, I mentioned what I ate, but there was nothing on the plate other than like an empty plate with like the remnants of sauce or whatever on it. And it was like, I got a kick out of it. I wonder if I could still find it. I love, see, and that's, by the way, that kind of thing is probably in the journal entry that I wrote like back in when I was using day one a number of years ago, right? So again, and I couldn't tell you how many entries I wrote. I couldn't tell you when the last time I wrote one was, but I can tell you that if I was to go look at my journal, it would tell me that. So, Dave, this has been a great conversation. Thank you so much for taking the time to join me, and especially to those members of the Time Crafting Trust Premium community who joined us on the live stream recording of this. You can check out that episode on my YouTube channel. It's been available for quite a while for premium members to look at, but now that this episode is out into the world, you can check out what happens when we put a show together. That's a live stream. Of course, you can subscribe to the podcast on my YouTube channel as well. But Dave, before I let you go, where can people keep up with the work that you're doing and learn more about journaling and the practices of, and really what's going on with reflection in general? Because that's your baby, right?
Yeah. Yeah, you can learn more about Reflection at Reflection.app. We're in the app stores as well, Android, iOS, Mac. And if you want to learn more about me, you can find me on LinkedIn, David Radparvar or Dave Radparvar. And if you want to shoot me an email, you're also welcome to. I'm Dave at Reflection.app. And really excited to connect with you guys. Thank you for everyone who's in this room. If I can ever be of service to anyone, just let me know.
Thanks to everybody who joined. Thanks, Janet. Thanks, Timothy. Thanks to Sarah for managing the chat room as well today. And thanks again, Dave, for having a productive conversation with me today.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks to Dave, not only for joining me for this podcast episode, but also allowing me to do it as a live stream for premium members of my Time Crafting Trust community. If you want to learn more about what this community is all about, which includes a ton of benefits, go to mikevardy.com/trust. Now, if you want to check out what we talked about in more depth, show notes, etc., you can do that right where you get your podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, but also go to mikevardy.com/podcast561. But since you're already using some sort of app to listen to this podcast, why not subscribe to the show while you're at it? That's a simple way to support the show. You won't miss a single episode of what's to come, which includes the Flashback Friday episodes that we deliver, as well as our monthly PM Talks series with my good friend, Patrick Rohn. Not to mention, you won't miss a single episode of these shiny new episodes we deliver and be able to easily search through the archives to check out past episodes as well. So subscribing to the show, that is one way to support the show. Another is to check out the sponsors that you heard during our conversation today. Go to mikevardy.com/podcast sponsors. Click on any of the sponsors links that are there that resonates with you. And that way they know that we sent you there. It's, again, a really easy way to support the show. And you get something out of it as well, beyond what you heard during today's conversation. We're going to move beyond today's conversation, beyond to the next episode, and beyond to the rest of your day. So thanks so much for taking the time to join me today. Until next time, I'm Mike Vardy, the host of A Productive Conversation, reminding you to stop doing productive and start being productive. See you later.